Yo, what is up guys, Dimeo's back with a brand new video, and we're back on some more Call of Duty World War II. I am so tired in this video, I'm totally not up to be making this. But of course, I still want to get an upload out for you guys. I'm not missing any days, we all know this already. Speaking of daily uploads, we're actually almost a month into daily uploads. The time has passed so quickly, I honestly just can't believe it. It's ridiculous. Like seriously, where did the time go? Being productive constantly and just always thinking of new video ideas and constantly recording, editing, and all this stuff. It really does keep you busy, and time really does fly. Like seriously, I can't believe that it's almost been an entire month that I've been daily uploading. That is fucking crazy. No fourth, of course. But anyway, let's get into today's topic. If you guys remember, a few days ago, I actually ended up talking about my first ever fight and how I ended up tragically losing that. But I also mentioned in that video that I actually had a second fight, and that if you guys would be interested in hearing about that, just leave it in the comments below. And a lot of people really wanted to see that, so I'm gonna be making a video about it. But before we get into today's video topic, I also wanted to mention that if there are any type of stories that you guys want me to talk about, just leave them in the comments below. I'll be listening and checking them, of course, as always. If you guys are interested in hearing specific stories to do with me, as long as they're not too personal, I guess, just leave them in the comments below. If you're not sure whether or not the story is too personal or not, just leave it in the comments below anyway, and if it's too much, well then I'll just reply to you saying that I can't make a video about that. But anyway, let's get into the story of my second ever fight in secondary school. That was so close to a swap quad feed. That would have been so nice. This is a really good lobby. Why can't I get lobbies like this all the time? But anyway, into the story of my second fight. I don't know if I mentioned whether or not I lost this fight. You guys will hear towards the end whether or not I actually lost the fight or not. So this fight ended up happening in my second year of secondary school. And as I said in my last fight video, since we were quite young, a lot of people were really obsessed with drama and fights and all this different type of stuff. Nothing new there. I'm not going to repeat that stuff. But this was a year after the first fight, and in fact, this fight was organized through the same kind of scenario as the first one. There were a lot of us on the bus, and me, I took things a little bit too seriously back then. Whenever somebody talked shit to me, of course, I had to talk shit back, and I would get all super defensive and seem tougher than I really was. I was what people would call a hard man. I was just always talking shit to people, but I couldn't back up any of that shit talking. I was a complete pussy. But one day we were on the bus, and there were a lot of people on there talking a bunch of shit, just making fun of each other, roasting each other. Exact same scenario as the last fight video. Now, around this time, of course, I was still making YouTube videos, and the big thing that people used to insult me over was making YouTube videos. And in fact, I'm pretty sure I remember what this argument between me and this guy started over. I'm pretty sure it was over YouTube. He was insulting me about YouTube and saying that I wasn't going to get anywhere with it and that my videos are trash and all this stuff. And I got very, very defensive when somebody talked about my videos. I was super sensitive. If someone talked shit about my videos, I, for some reason, cared a little bit too much. Today, if you talk shit to me, just do whatever the fuck you want. I don't give a shit. Because at the end of the day, I'm still gonna be buying Lambos in the future. Hey! I'm only kidding. I won't be buying Lambos. All that money's going in my bank account for my future. But this guy was insulting me about my YouTube, and it got to me. It got on my nerves. Exactly the same as the last story. I ended up asking him for a fight. Now, one thing I will mention before I keep going on with this story is that this fight definitely did not go nearly as bad as the first one. When I asked the guy for a fight in my first video, I asked him for the fight, and then I didn't talk about it at all. I was super scared, super nervous. You could probably tell that I was really nervous to have the fight. But in the second fight, I think I did a little bit better because I asked the guy for the fight and I didn't act like a pussy. I told people, you know, I think I'm going to win. I really do think I can take this guy on and stuff like that. I was a little bit more confident anyway, which can kind of be seen as a good or a bad thing because I didn't necessarily win the fight. I didn't necessarily lose it, but I did talk a little bit of shit trying to scare the other guy, make him feel like, you know, maybe he could actually lose against me. I was kind of trying to get into this guy's head, so I would talk a little bit of shit saying that I'm gonna beat this guy and all this stuff, which is a good or a bad thing depending on how you see it, because I didn't win the fight in the end. Therefore, that shit talking was kind of not justified. But again, just like the last situation, the fight was organized. It spread around the school. Again, a shit ton of people knew that it was going to happen, and it happened after school. I remember it way clearer than the first one. It happened after school. A lot of people had heard about it, and a lot of people were following us, like shit tons of groups who wanted to come and watch this fight because they had heard about it. And I remember as we were going up to have the fight, this guy was kind of on the fence, and he didn't actually know if he was going to have the fight or not. Like, he actually seemed a little bit nervous. Now, that may have been because of me or because of someone else. I can't exactly remember. I'm not trying to make myself sound tough or scary or some shit. He was nervous for some reason or another. He didn't seem like he really wanted to have the fight. He kind of seemed as if he wanted to call it off a little bit. And me seeing that this guy wanted to call off the fight, I was trying to take every advantage of it. I was telling people like, oh, he's too much of a pussy, he doesn't want to fight. And I was trying to find every easy way out to kind of make it seem as if this guy was pussying out of the fight and automatically gave me a win. Because if you accepted a fight and you pussied out of it, that was seen as even worse than losing a fight. And me, I was trying to get this guy to pussy out of the fight. I seriously wanted to get a cheap way out of it, because if this guy pussied out of the fight, I felt like that was way better than a win to me anyway. I would have felt like I was top shit and that this guy was scared of me or some shit. But of course that wasn't the case. In fact, I was a huge pussy because I wanted him to pussy out of the fight, just because I kind of had a feeling that I was going to get my ass kicked. This guy did a little bit of boxing and he was definitely more experienced with fighting than the last guy. So I'd say about 20 minutes pass and we still don't know if the fight is going to happen. And so what happens is we split into two groups. I really hated that there were a shit ton of people who wanted to watch this fight. So what happened is groups kind of split into two. There were some people who went with him, or at least one person that I remember. There was one person who went with the guy who I was supposed to fight, and then there were some other people who went with me, and we kind of split off so that this whole situation kind of diffused a little bit, because there were too many people who wanted to watch this fight. We didn't really like that sort of attention. We just kind of wanted to get the fight over with, and then that's it. We didn't want anybody to be watching. We didn't want it to be that big of a deal, because, you know, it's way more difficult to have a fight and not let it get to your nerves when there are a shit ton of people watching, especially immature kids from fucking school. So we had split off a little bit and we had relocated to a new place, and there were definitely a lot less people who were coming to watch. I'd still say there were a good like 10 people, but it definitely wasn't anything compared to like the, I don't know, 40 or 50 people that came along to watch, which kind of made me a little bit nervous. I was still nervous because I know that I'm about to have a fight with someone, and I knew that this guy did have a little bit of training up his sleeve. He definitely had a huge advantage over me as a fucking scrawny kid who just didn't have any training whatsoever. I really need to stop asking people for fights who are out of my league. And so the time comes and the fight is about to start, and I remember it was down some really sketchy alleyway somewhere, and then someone comes in between us and announces that the fight is going to start. He does a countdown and basically it just goes on from there. Now again, I wasn't experienced with fighting and I made another huge mistake. Again, the same one as my last fight. I didn't put my hands up whatsoever. Again, I kept my hands on my side. I didn't even protect my face. It's stupid. Like, if I could go back and re-have those fights, I would definitely put my hands up again. Not saying that I want to have those fights again, because quite frankly, I'm not a fighter. As I said, I'm a massive pussy. But if I could definitely change one thing about those fights, it's definitely to at least have my hands up, you know, be prepared. Now, when it comes to the overall fight, I definitely did a lot better than the last time. At least I didn't trip over and fall straight to the ground after the first punch. No, but what happened is the fight started, and I remember I threw a punch, and I threw this punch so fast and so hard. It must have been all the adrenaline that was building up inside of me, because I just threw this punch ridiculously fast. In fact, another meme was kind of created in my school, another kind of like joke that was created about me, is that people said I was going to knock myself out at how quickly I swung that punch. And of course, I'm not bragging or anything. Just because I threw a punch fast doesn't mean shit. It didn't really do much to the guy. And then what ended up happening after that punch, we kind of got into like a spinning match or something. Like, I grabbed onto one of his sleeves and I was trying to pull him over so that I can punch him over and over again as I was throwing these punches. Now, this guy, he seemed to know what he was doing, because as I was throwing these punches, he managed to duck under one of my punches, completely dodge it, come back up, and crack me on the side of the head. Looking back on that, just thinking about it, that was a good move. Like, not gonna lie, I gotta give it to the guy. That was a good punch. People made a very big deal about it because apparently, from what people are saying, the punch sounded really, really loud. Like, they seriously thought that I had got really hurt off of that. But the thing is, from what I remember, the punch didn't hurt. It kind of hit me on the side of the head, the back of the head more like. I don't know why, but it seems like punches to the back of the head don't really hurt that much. At least for me anyway. The hits that I did get to the back of the head, to the side of the head in those two fights didn't really hurt that much. Of course, I'm not trying to brag. I'm not trying to make it sound like I'm tough or some shit. It just didn't hurt. So people made a huge deal about it. When I got hit to the side of the head, it sounded really loud. You know, in fairness, it was a very, very good hit, and, you know, he got points for it or some shit. And so after that happened, after we kind of got into a spinning match and he dodged my punch and then just cracked me on the side of the head, what happened after is I actually started to get a little bit of an advantage in the fight. Now, by no means was I going all Conor McGregor on this guy's ass. I wasn't destroying the guy or anything like that, but the guy started to actually turn his back to me, and I started throwing punches from the side to like the side of his body, started throwing some knees in there, and by no means did I severely hurt the guy or whatever, and I don't even think it really won me the fight or anything. Now, of course, these hits that I was giving to the guy when he wasn't even facing me, the ones to his back, to his legs, to the side of his body and stuff like that, those really weren't that big of a deal. But what pissed me off looking back on the fight, and something that really bothered me for a while, is that once I started to get the advantage and once I started to actually throw punches at the guy and it seemed like I was about to actually do something good, the person who he had went with when we originally split up to relocate in that location, that person ended up stopping the fight and initiating a round 2 once he saw that I had started getting an advantage in the fight, which to me seemed very, very rigged. It just seems a little bit like too much of a coincidence. The person who you walked away with when we were about to start the fight, the guy who was on your side, as soon as he saw that I got an advantage, he ended the fight and said round 2, that because we needed a break apparently. I think that sounds a little bit suspicious. Now, of course, today, I don't care anymore. It's the past, whatever. I'll say I lost. I'll even say I lost the fight. I don't really give a shit. But if you do look back on that, that is a little bit sketchy. Like, in my opinion, that's not how it should work. I think the fight should just go on until somebody technically loses the fight because they're just getting the shit kicked out of them. Like, yes, I took a punch to the head, but I stayed on my feet. By no means did he win the fight just off of that one punch. The fight still went on, and then I started to get an advantage a little bit, and then the fight was ended. Now, unfortunately, even though there was supposed to be a second round to that fight, which I will never know how it would have went, even though a round 2 was supposed to be in the fight, a security guard actually ended up walking out and telling us to go away and to stop fighting, which basically ended the fight, because after that everyone just kind of walked away and the fight just kind of ended there, and the fight kind of came to a conclusion. Now, overall, if I were to talk about the fight fully, I would say I did better than my first fight, but by no means did I win that fight. Now, at the same time, I don't think I lost it. Personally, I saw the fight as a no contest because the fight was called off when I started to get an advantage, and I think that's really, really dumb. I don't think that's how it should have went. Now, the thing is, even though that fight had ended there, people actually said that I lost, and that is what people believe. Now, a lot of people who are my friends who are on my side said that it was a no contest. Some people went as far as to say I won the fight. By no means did I win that fight. I didn't hit the guy enough. I didn't, you know, go far enough to say that I won. In my opinion, the way I see it, I didn't lose the fight, but by no means did I win. But the majority of people said that I lost the fight because I got hit in the head. I didn't manage to hit the guy in the head, which I think is stupid because the fight was called off early. But the way I see it now, today, I don't really care. I'll just take it as a loss because it's the past. I really don't give a shit about it anymore. It's definitely worse than my third fight. I'm only kidding. I didn't actually have a third fight. Nah. After that fight, I was done. I didn't want to fight again. So I decided to not go with a third fight. Just letting you guys know, I didn't end up having another fight after that. So unfortunately, I won't be having another video about like a supposed third fight. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much the end of the video. I'll have my last one run up across the screen. If you haven't checked that out already, definitely make sure to check it out. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks very much for watching. Peace out.